Are you making between $12,000 to $28,000 in net monthly income? If not, then you might have some difficulty making these 2026 BMW M5 sedan payments. Now let's talk about how we got to the payments in the first place. First of all, I am running two different simulations here, one for the lease, one for the finance. And I'm also using a discount price of 6% off the MSRP. How is that possible? Well, I am personally partnered with AutoCompanion, who is one of the largest car brokers in the United States. Him and his partner dealerships in the Washington, D.C. area, they are offering about 6% off on in-stock units and on builds. So I went on BMW's website and I built a sedan which has an MSRP of $127,125. And I did not include the executive package because I'm not sure if you've been on BMW's website lately, but on certain top-of-the-line vehicles, when you opt for the executive package, they're starting to include like this interior camera, which I personally think is crazy. However, some of you don't seem to care at all, but I do, so I have personally skipped the executive package for this build. However, when you skip that executive package, you cannot get the 3D 360 view camera along with some other features. So that is very unfortunate. Regardless of that, I have still avoided the executive package. And to run the lease numbers, I am using AutoCompanion's free leasing calculator, which I will have linked in the description box below. This will show you the interest rate of a lease, the residual values, and the incentives that you can get in your local zip code. I am using Pennsylvania as the example state. I'm using about $2,225 in fees. However, AutoCompanion also charges his own fee in order to access his deals, which I don't mind paying because he has some of the best prices in the country. His fee is about $999. If you go on his website and you fill out an inquiry form and you mention my channel, I think he'll take like $50 off that fee. So I also added $949 as AutoCompanion's fee into these calculations. That's something that you pay up front, but regardless, I'm just gonna roll it in for this example. With no money down, your lease payment, it's going to be $2,043.13. And because this is a full-blown M vehicle, BMW does not have any incentivized finance programs as of yet, so we had to find our own good finance rate, and that's going to be through PenFed. At least that's the credit union that I've seen offering some of the best interest rates on new and used vehicles, and they seem to be available to everyone. You just have to put $5 into a savings account and you're automatically a member. I'm not affiliated with this bank. They just seem to have some of the best interest rates, and they finance up to $150,000. They have 4.79% for 60 months. So I'm going to use that for this example, and we're going to continue to put no money down. This is just my opinion, but I feel like the whole point of leasing or financing a vehicle is to preserve your capital and not to blow it on a rotting, depreciating liability. You can do as you please. This video is just for entertainment's sakes only. So we're going to continue to use Pennsylvania as the example state. I'm still going to roll in all of the fees, including AutoCompanion's fee, even though that's something that you pay up front. Regardless of that, your monthly payment on this 2026 M5 sedan, it's going to be $2,437.79. Now, something to keep in mind, although this new M5 is a plug-in hybrid, we don't have like a $7,500 incentive from BMW either for leasing or for financing. Usually you're going to see that with plug-in hybrids from other manufacturers. Even if it's not $7,500 per se, they might offer you like $5,000 or $6,500 as some type of a lease cash perhaps, but that is not the case with this new M5. If that ever changes, AutoCompanion's website will also update and it will be reflected in the incentives section. Anyway, in order to figure out how much income we need to comfortably afford this vehicle, we're going to have to figure out the total monthly cost, including the insurance and the fuel. I already kind of alluded to the income needed at the beginning of this video, but we're going to get into the specifics here. I just did a quick Google search to see how much the insurance would be on a new M5, and the Google AI, it spat out something ridiculous, like over $5,000 per year. That's ridiculous. Maybe if you're really young and you're living in California or New York or Florida, perhaps that might be the case, but I don't know. Some of these numbers that the Google AI spits out, it's a bit OD. It's typically when you start digging into the forums, when you begin to see a more accurate picture on what people are paying. Of course, this new M5 is too new. Nobody's really chatting about the insurance rate. But for this example, I just went with $250 for the monthly insurance. Even on really high-end vehicles like Porsche GT3s, Z06 Corvettes, I've seen people talk about paying, somewhere in the realm of $120 and $140 per month. How is that possible? Well, typically I've noticed that those are individuals who are with perhaps Allstate or State Farm, and they have a bunch of different policies bundled together, like their home insurance, maybe a rental property, an umbrella policy, a few different vehicles, right? So they have many different policies bundled together, allowing them to have really cheap and affordable insurance. And I can attest to that. When you do have all these things bundled together, you will be getting a rather cheap monthly insurance. But if you're like single and you're maybe like renting in an apartment, then perhaps it's really those individuals that might be paying these exorbitant amounts of money in insurance. And of course, if you live in one of those expensive states that I mentioned before, regardless though, I'm just gonna go with $250 a month. And Edmunds was estimating about $240 a month in fuel for 15,000 miles of driving per year, with a mix between city and highway driving. This is a plug-in hybrid. This new M5, it'll do about 25 miles of pure EV range, which is nice. I just went with $200 a month for the fuel for this calculation. So $250 insurance, $200 for the fuel, an extra $450 a month. Could you be paying far less than this? Of course. But I do like to overestimate a few things, because some people might be living in a state that has like a perpetual annual property tax that they have to pay. And some individuals genuinely do live in some of these rather expensive states. So we're gonna overestimate a few things, I suppose. The total lease cost, including everything like fuel and insurance, it's gonna be $2,493.13. The total finance cost, it's going to be $2,887.79. That means in order to comfortably afford the lease payments on this M5, you got to be bringing in between $12,000 to close to $25,000 in net monthly income. In order to afford the finance payments, you got to be bringing in between $14,000 to a little over $28,000 per month in net monthly income. Now, where did I get these numbers? Well, there is a Kelley Blue Book article that states that your total monthly payment, including your fuel and your insurance, should not exceed more than 10 to 20% of your net monthly income. So that's where I get these numbers from, and that's where I get these ranges from. After all, Kelley Blue Book, it's a trusted resource, right? Now, these numbers are obviously intense, but then again, why wouldn't it be? We're talking about a six-figure automobile. However, it's a six-figure vehicle where I applied 6% off the MSRP, and I did try to find the best interest rates possible. Sure, I could have maybe downplayed the insurance and the fuel cost just a little bit more, so you could see some savings there, and you could subtract maybe even a few $1,000s from these income estimates. But between the lease and the finance, which one is worth it? Personally, the lease is not looking that great. I know from a monthly payment standpoint, it is technically like $400 cheaper. That seems nice, but you have to look at the interest rate of the lease, which once again, you go back to AutoCompanion's calculator, it's like 5.76%. That's not fantastic. The only way I can recommend the lease on a BMW M5 like this is if you are wealthy enough to do something known as a one-pay lease, where you make all of your payments up front, and the purpose of doing that is to reduce the interest that you pay. Typically, when you do such a thing, the interest rate gets cut almost in half. Not quite, but almost. And that's a great way of not being completely tied to a vehicle, and it satisfies some of those, pay cash individuals, which there are those people who like to say, oh, just pay cash for everything, as if the cash just falls out of the sky effortlessly, which I have something for them very soon. But yeah, if you just want to get all the payments done up front while still getting the benefits of a lease, which is that guaranteed residual protection, which basically protects you from any negative equity, then yeah, doing the one-pay lease can be great. Otherwise, I just suggest putting nothing down whenever possible and just getting the gap insurance. But again, that's just me. The finance, it's not pretty either. The payment is obviously very high, and the total loan interest paid, if you do end up keeping this monthly payment for the duration of 60 months, you're going to be paying over $16,000 in interest. Obviously, that's not great either. And for those pay cash individuals, well, there are many sources that suggest that If you're going to pay cash for a vehicle, the vehicle should not exceed more than 5 to 10% of your net worth. So we're talking about a $120,000 vehicle here. You got to have a net worth between $1.2 to $2.4 million if you're going to pay cash for this vehicle. And that's just for this one car. If you want 2 six-figure automobiles, well, you can double the monthly payments that you have to produce, and you can also double that net worth figure that I just mentioned as well. But anyway, those are your numbers. Once again, if you are actually in the market for a new M5 or really any new BMW, you can reach out to AutoCompanion. He has some of the best prices in the United States. Yes, he does charge a broker fee, but his fee is well worth it. Also, he's primarily located in the Washington, D.C. and California areas. If you're not local to these areas, he does offer nationwide shipping, but shipping is something you have to pay extra for. I did not include any sort of a shipping fee into these simulations. I just assumed that you are going to be picking up at either DC or California. But as you can see, when you go on his website, he's got phenomenal discounts. Even on popular vehicles like the X5, the X7, he's got over 10 and 11% off the MSRP. Very impressive. And incentives stack on top of those discounts that I mentioned. So if you want a headache-free way of purchasing a vehicle without dealing with any dealership shenanigans, AutoCompanion is great. You can of course build vehicles with AutoCompanion and get these same discounts as well. Plus he has other makes and models like Audi, Mercedes, Lexus, and more affordable brands like Mazda, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, etc. If you found value with this content, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.